Joining me in the studio to discuss this is youth advocate Abraham Great. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you for having me here again.
Right. We know what led to the hashtag EndSARS protest, police brutality, and some level of marginalization, as some have put it, with regards to the things going on. And, you know, the youth were making demands of government. They came with the 5 for 5 demands, and later there was a 5 for 7 or 7 for 5 demands later on. But then again, after that, we saw some person said that protest showed that the dimension, the youth, you know, could come together and make certain demands of government, that it was a 21st century kind of protest. That being said, what has changed after those demands were made? Because as it is, 1 year after on, we are trying to recall or commemorate that day. And some persons are still saying that nothing has changed despite the youths coming out to make these demands. Is it that government is not understanding the youth, or is it the youth not placing their demands appropriately for government to look into and perhaps, you know, give them what they are demanding? What really is the disconnect, and what are the issues that you have seen 1 year after?
Thank you. I want to first of all empathize with you and every member of the studio who were here this time last year when that happened. I could see that in your emotion as you were speaking and afterward. But I want to say to everybody in TVC, I'm not saying sorry, I just empathize, because as a human vessel, we're all Nigerians. Either we're youth, either we're government, either we're police. Most of the police are also young people as well. But I want to say, you're asking me what has changed. I don't know if anything really has changed, because there is a huge parity between expectation and implementation.
Right.
You see, we always say, personally, I'm not an advocate of democracy. It's not that I don't totally believe in democracy, but I don't believe that Nigeria, the magnitude and the diversity of our nation, that democracy is the only thing that we should rely on. But that's a story for another day.
All right, because I'd like to know the options that we could...
I'll come to that in a minute.
Right.
But under democracy, it is said that the government is for the people, is by the people, is of the people. But in the settings that we have in Nigeria and in most part of the third world, no. It is for a selected few who dictates to others what they want. And I'll give you an example.
Right.
There is, according to Maslow's hierarchy of need, the basic human need is the physiological need, which is the water, the air, you know, and then you move to the second tier, which is safety. Nigeria has not even met the first basic need of human being. You see the way human being, either you're youth or you're old, are living in Nigeria is appalling. You have to at least make it to the middle class or in the rich level for you to have some level of sanity in this country. If not, you are almost less than a human being.
Right.
So that will always lead to agitation, no matter what it is. And unless government realize that there's a parity between international expectation, between humanity and our standard of living, we are not going to be able to, you know, overcome all this kind of agitation. Let me take the police itself. You know, I grew up in Ikeja, not far from here.
Right.
And I recall having friends at the police barrack, and I will go there. And I look at the standard of life. I mean, I left Nigeria like 20-something years, about 25 or so years ago, as a teenager. I come back and I see that not only is, I thought it was bad in the 1990s. When I go in there right now, it's even worse than it used to be. And I ask myself the question, how can a human being be raised in this kind of environment, and then I put gun in their hands and I want them to go and protect people? It's not going to happen, because it's mindset. The mindset are not set right from the time you were born in this country. So you don't even know how to grow. Then when people develop their own aspiration, people develop their own water, they develop their own road, people develop their own, they generate their own electricity, and then you're still going to stop at them on the road. You're still going to see them with a laptop and arrest them. What kind of a country are we living in? So the agitation, we haven't really come far from last year, to be honest.
So invariably, the agitation did not achieve anything?
I would say the agitation in itself achieved some things, and both the agitators and the government achieved something, and I'll clarify that.
Right.
Now we have the attention of the international community. That is huge.
Haven't we always had that?
No.
Really?
See, we always have international interest in Nigeria, but no one actually understands the magnitude of the suffering that the Nigerian youth are going through in the hands of police. In this case, the EndSARS.
Right.
Now, that brought to the international attention there is police brutality in almost every part of the world.
Right.
Sometimes, at a point I was in America, and just by 2 minutes, my life was saved because a police was almost going to shoot me. I had rented a car that was trolling off. I was in a conference, running out to it. I'm not going to go into details of that, but police has always been an issue in every part of the world. But there are places you live in the world, like I live in England, and you see the police, the way a police will address you, even if you have committed an offense or something, the way he or she will speak to you, you feel like a human being.
Right.
You actually, if you're lost, you can actually park to speak to a police person because they're going to probably take you or direct you or lead you. But in Nigeria, even the police person themselves, they're not in the right frame of mind.
So we getting the attention of the international community. What has that changed? Because in the last 1 year, you said nothing much has changed.
Now, that has brought in some caution, particularly on government. It hasn't restricted the government from being, I would say, let me put it this way. We used to view our government as being tyrannic. I think they have, in a little bit, softened from being tyrannic to being dictators. They are still tough government. Our leaders are still tough. But I think they are, the mountains are leveling a little bit. And, see, one of the things that the government needs to do and why people like myself advocate for the youth is that, like your colleague said, Honorable Mr. Mike Okocha, he says something that is very, very key here. There has to be a connection between the government and citizen. I realize that the higher you go in this country, the far removed you are from reality. I've actually, liaised with people who has genuine interest before getting into government. But once they get into government, you're having certain conversation with them, and they felt it's no, we've resolved that. I'm like, I just came from the street a few hours ago. This issue is not resolved, but people are far removed from reality. They live almost in another world. It's like you enter into a cocoon.
And perhaps that is why the youth decided to go the way of protest to get their attention back to their reality, speaking about the youth now.
And rightfully so, because the Constitution, the Section 40 of the Nigerian Constitution gives the right to everybody, not just the youth, in Nigeria
to protest,
for peaceful assembly. And that was what was happening last year. However, saying that, on the path of the government, the Section 45 of the same Constitution restricts that right once it begins to become a public nuisance or public safety. You see, immediately the protest become toxic. Immediately you begin to have rapes, you begin to have stealing and looting. We have already violated Section 40 of the Constitution.
But it was peaceful until it was hijacked, because the youth were protesting peacefully for days. This is where there should always be the connect. You see, dialogue goes beyond talking.
By the time the government were engaging the youth, that was a good effort. But it's almost like we were talking to some high people in high places behind closed doors. They want one of the celebrities or some of the youth to just come somewhere and then they just talk to them and those people come back. Now, when you have peaceful protest, like what should happen today if the youth want to protest, is that the government will provide the police force, in some cases, if necessary, even the army, to protect the people for protesting, not against the people. Government must always remember, you are not the enemy of your people. Also, government must always remember, do not be afraid of your people. The people who have no arms, the people who have no sword, the people who have no, anything to fight with, you cannot begin to rise against them and begin to shoot at them. The best they can do is to sing, to shout, to play with one another. And when that becomes disorderly, you do everything possible. We watch that on TV. We see it in the Scandinavia. We see it in Europe. We see it in America, where the police will do everything to restrict the people from being, a danger to themselves or to buildings, to the environment
in general. Yeah. All right. Now, as it is, how do we move forward from here? Speaking about the youth and the government, there are those who have said that the best decision at this point is for the youth to embrace the dialogue and perhaps begin to engage government in dialogue. But for you, what is the next step for the youth to press home their demands to government such that the government and the people can be on the same page?
I'm sure you know that my background is as a clergyman. And I'll say to you, I'll take you back to the foundation. You see, it is said that if the foundation be destroyed, what can we do?
Yeah.
So even the unrighteous cannot do anything. Anyone cannot do anything.
The foundation being what exactly?
So the foundation, the formation of this country has a problem. And I'm not talking about just the independence and stuff. I'm even talking as far back as when these nations was put together. Remember, we used to have two nations. We have the northern Nigeria, we have the southern Nigeria as of the 1900. And then between 1900 and 1912, I think 1912, those who run this country realize that, okay, there's one part of the country, the other part of the country, has this resourcefulness and that resourcefulness. The amalgamation of this country in itself needs to be revisited as a major constitutional reform. Unless we begin to institutionally and intentionally, constructively reshape this nation, we will not fix the problem. Because we will fix one bit of a problem and we think, oh, we've given the people something. But we need to make the country equitable for everybody. For the youth, for the Muslim, for the Christians, for the old, for everybody. And the only way we can do that is to remove the elephant in the room.
Which is?
There are so many things.
Okay.
Is it the census? Is it the derivation? Is it the appropriation of the federal revenues? There are too many things that there's ambiguity around in this country. So nearly every fraction of this country is unhappy, not just the youth.
But there are low-hanging fruits that we can begin with.
Well, I would say, if you want me to say where we can begin with, I'll say we begin with constitutional reform. Look at, for example, the Confab report of 2014.
Right.
That would have been a good place to start with. It's not a perfect document, but it was a good effort. You cannot have a static document and we're binded by it. I understand that in the House there have been some bills, some amendments,
yes.
But we need major constitutional reform that makes the country equitable for both of us. Listen, we have to always in this country put humanity above tradition. We have to put humanity above religion. We have to put humanity above agenda. Until we come to that realization, we don't have a nation. At the moment, my conclusion is that Nigeria is not yet a country. Nigeria is a space where human being lives. The document that we have has a lot of ambiguity around it. We do not have a viable constitution. Do you want me to talk about the effort that was already being made by Awolowo that would have given us 6 different, is it trico, they call it trico something, kind of a country where you have, the southeast, the southwest, we would have had 6 different prime ministers.
Regions, yeah.
And then we will have a center president. I often believe this, and I'll be giving you too many things because we don't have so much point. There is no great nation on this earth that has been built on 4 years of presidency. You cannot have a great president for 4 years. A nation is not built in 4 years. All of the great nations that we copy democracy from, they had great nation before even democracy comes. That is why Nigeria had the opportunity to rewrite history by reforming the kind of way that we govern ourselves.
Right. Well, that would be a fine place to leave this conversation. Thank you so much, Abraham Great, a youth advocate, for your time this morning.
Thank you.